What up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Carl here from ADV Moto. Please excuse my voice. I've kind of gone hoarse. We have been jamming hard here in the Himalayas on the new Himalayan, and man, I am so excited to ride this bike and also be able to share with you finally some of the amazing upgrades that Royal Enfield has made to a model that those of you that follow know I already love. Well, first off, let's take a look at this bike as a whole. You can see that it's all new frame, all new geometry. The motor is obviously brand new. It's water cooled. You got a stubby exhaust pipe on there. And you can still see actually the seat height is extremely low. Plus the seat is now adjustable. Let's go over this kind of from front to back, and I'll try to keep my shadow out of the shot. All right, so first things first is the suspension. So what we have now is the upside down suspension, which is now, as you can kind of see if I can grab this, it's now Showa. In case you're wondering what this is a sash that was given to me by Tibetan monks almost 20 years ago on my journey in the Chinese Tibetan mountains, and I brought it back as an homage to that trip. But so the suspension is tuned really well. From the front, it's loaded, and excuse my voice, it's loaded with a spring on one side, I believe it's the left side, and the rebound and dampening are on the right side. Even though it's not adjustable, it doesn't really matter. It's much stiffer than the original one, and almost every journalist I've seen here has not complained about the suspension, which is amazing. And some of them are riding fairly aggressively. The axle's a little bit larger. You'll also notice that this version has gold rims, and actually there are the top line version has tubeless spoked rims as well, which is awesome. You don't really find that on bikes in this size range at all, but it is available, and it does come on their upper range, which you can tell by the graphics. So moving on up, we can kind of see we've got a full-on LED headlight. All the lights are LED. Turn signals, the brake lights, they're also LED. So full LED. You're not changing any bulbs anymore. And then you've got this really nicely integrated with hints of the previous style windscreen. Moving on back. All right, the tank has lost its boxy look, and it looks better in person than it does on pictures, because it kind of flattens out on pictures, but it actually has these very large shoulders here, and the reason why is because the tank now goes up to 17 liters, which is about 4.5 gallons. So the range on this thing is pretty good. Let's get to actually the gauges. I'll see if I can turn this on for you. Turn this on. So this is not going to show up on the camera, it might flicker, but we've got full-on circular TFT gauges, which are integrated with Google Maps. It's, I think, the first of its kind, and I think they're trying to copyright or patent it. The brakes, are up here. The brakes are extremely responsive, better than some other brakes I've had from other manufacturers. They feel firm, but they're not too hard or aggressive. And they're certainly not too soft, and that counts for both front and rear. The bars can be flipped around. This button right here, see if I could turn the wheel a little bit. This button right here is how you change the modes on your screen. We'll have to go into some screens. I'll see if I can get some stock footage to show you that a little bit. And for the other controls, up on top you have your headlight, your pass to flash, so on and so forth. But you now have this little jog dial down here underneath next to the horn. We're using the horn a lot out here. But you have this jog dial down here now. And this is how you control a lot of the other functions on your screen. So there are modes on this bike now, and that's amazing. So the modes, you have performance, like reduced performance, and then on and off for the ABS. So you do have selectable ABS on this, and it's fantastic. And being able to tune down the engine is great for someone who's a newer rider. Although I expect most riders will keep it on the regular, performance mode. Let's move down to the engine. This engine has a slight slant. It's basically a modern engine. I believe the numbers are, they basically shaved 20 pounds off the engine by making it a modern engine, and it's like 11.5 to 1 compression ratio. It's over 11 to 1 compression ratio, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, you still have some of the Royal Enfield lines and some of the stuff that, again, hints from the old one. But the thing is sick, and it's 6-speed. And I'll try to throw up a graph here that shows the power curve, but the thing gives you 60% more power. The engine now has a top end, which is absolutely fantastic. The top end of the engine actually allows you to pass, and get this, you're doing about 65 miles an hour in 4th gear at 7,000 RPM, plus the engine gained another 2,000 plus RPM to top out at a red line at around 8,000 RPM. So a lot of the complaints that people had, well, it's hard to pass, and that's totally gone now. It's totally gone now. So 4th gear, 65 miles an hour, 2 more gears to go. It's a completely different beast. All right, we've got the usual foot pegs with the removable rubber insert. We've got a large catalytic converter, which also does silencing. So that allowed them to make the pipe relatively small. And you can see how small that is. That's also nice too, because it allows you to be more flexible with your luggage. Rear brakes work great, obviously with the ABS. The other thing too is this seat. This seat is gobs more comfortable than the old seat. Can't even explain it. I think that there could still be some room for aftermarket improvements on the saddle, but we've been riding in these for the past couple of days and have had zero problems with them. The other cool thing too is there are 2 seats, a high and a low seat, and each one of those is adjustable, I believe, by 20 millimeters, which would be 2 centimeters. So you're looking at like about an inch up or down. So I mean that's awesome. Coming into the back, this is the major change. Is you see the shock is no longer traditionally mounted. All these changes help them keep the seat height low. So the shock now has a special linkage system that works absolutely great. And you can see with the shock guard, even though we've been going through some slimy stuff, it's really not all that dirty. So I'm really happy about that too as well. Another thing is, if you remember on the previous Himalayan, right, there was a large battery compartment here, right? And that kind of made it kind of bow out a little bit, and your legs could feel it even when you were standing. Well, the battery has been moved to in between the seat rails, and you notice that this rear section is bolt-on, which is awesome. But the battery has been moved up high, and I mean, that just helps keep it free from water. But the main thing that it does is, if you look at it from this direction, it's now also extremely narrow. There are other changes that have been made. Some of them are kind of more hair splitting, and I would love to go through all of them. But these are the key ones. You got more power all over the place. You have a new top end. You have a 6-speed engine with just a fantastic output, really predictable, excellent suspension out of the box. Oh yeah, the handling is more aggressive for the road manners, on off-road and on-road. We've been on some ice here, seen some drops. It's been good. We've been running all day, and this tank doesn't even get to half. I mean, there's just so much to love about it. You're not going to worry about, bulbs, anything else like that. This is a major, major, major evolutionary change for not only the bike, but the brand. So probably at the point of this video release, we may or may not know the price that it's going to be at in the United States. But the bottom line is, as long as they keep it reasonable, this thing is absolutely going to rocket, and it will be a force to be reckoned with on the small and mid-size market. There's a lot to go over. I could make an hour video on all the changes, but let's get in the saddle.
We're riding right now, in case we forgot, was the brand new Royal Enfield Himalayan. There's a lot of reasons why this is a completely different bike. One thing is the engine, which is probably, actually, there's so many positive changes on this. I actually don't want to say that it's the biggest change, but the engine is a gigantic change on this. And the main thing is the engine runs way smoother than the old one. The engine is also, I think, about 20 pounds lighter, but it's water cooled. Power delivery is not like any, whatever you're thinking about the old one, just kind of forget about it. There are some things that are similar in that they kept all of the usable torque and stuff down low, but they're claiming it's about 60+% more power, and I believe it. The most notable difference, and this is going to be important for a lot of the riders and the people that were critics of the old Himalayan or the previous version of the Himalayan, is that the bike now has a top end and the red line has been extended, I think another 2,000 plus RPM. And what this means is that, right, we're able to do 100 kilometers an hour, which is about 60-65 miles an hour, up towards the end of the rev range in fourth gear. And this is going to a 6-speed transmission. So a lot of the kind of criticisms people had about the old one, not having any passing power and all that stuff, I mean, it's still a 450, but a lot of that has been solved. Handling is sportier, it's stiffer. The upside down forks on this are Showa, and they're not adjustable. But I gotta be honest with you, at over 200 pounds, we've already, not just carved a lot of these kind of paved twisties, but we've gone through some rough areas where the roads have been blown up, and some off-road sections. And man, there's really not much that you would need to do out of a box unless you wanted to be a very aggressive rider. But my take on this basically is it would be suitable for over 95% of what anyone would want this bike to do. Alright, so let's talk about the geometry, right? So I'm about 6 foot tall, I got 32-inch inseam. They move these upper tank guards a little more forward, so there's no interference with my knee. If I was much taller, like if I was 6'4", 6'5", or something, then it might be something, but right now I have no issues with it. The pegs do feel a little bit higher. I think that contributes to a slightly sportier feeling riding position, because I mean, this thing is just way more fun in the turns. I can't even begin to describe it to you. The original Himalayan, which I love a lot, everybody knows I'm a huge fan of the Himalayan, the original Himalayan. That turns and feels more kind of like, let's say, like an off-road cruiser. This definitely feels more like sportier, modern design and geometry all the way around. And the fact that they managed to add all this stuff and even still shave a couple pounds off the bike, while adding more gas, it's pretty incredible. Please excuse me if my voice, but now let's talk about these gauges. I mean, the technology on this dash is also through the roof. It's Google Maps powered, syncs up with your phone. You can get the map actually appears on the gauge. The gauge changes contrast, right? White on black, and then it will reverse to black on white automatically. So much of the gauge is customizable. It's crazy. They have an analog-ish version, and then they also have a version that's basically, full digital. And so far, it's just been extremely easy to read. When I was looking at the pre-release pictures of it, it really seemed like I was like, well, maybe it's going to be too small, maybe it's going to be hard to read, all this and all that. But actually, no problem. I mean, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, so I'm wearing glasses. But all the numbers are nice and big and clean. I've got nothing to complain about. And considering that it's so customizable, you can kind of set it up with whatever kind of information that you want. Alright, so we got off the main highway on this little trail, which kind of makes me feel like home. I remember spending weeks on roads like this on the other side of the Himalayas in China. Let's talk about the off-road handling on this thing, man. And I find the suspension quite fine as long as I'm not trying to be very aggressive. It kind of eats up everything. It's a world of difference between the new bike and the old bike. I mean, it just has to be ridden to understand, but because they kept the power delivery down low. It's very forgiving off of idle. And if you happen to lug through a section, it's quite alright. Tires that we have on here right now are really more like street tires, and nobody's having a problem. The guys that want to ride faster, they're further up in the group. But I've always been a solo rider, and I am very happy chilling out back here, not eating as much dust. Anyway, it's just improved over the old one. But what I would say overall with the suspension is what they've done with it makes it really wonderfully balanced between on-road and off-road. And we don't know the price point of this right now, but assuming they don't make it too outrageous, which actually I've heard from the president of Royal Enfield that they're not going to make it outrageous. Assuming that they don't, man, this is going to be tough to beat. So if you're going to do it as a comparison, like what's going to be in this class, it's not going to be that much from the class. The KTM 390 is probably going to be its main, its main competition. It's going to be lighter than the CB500X. And I got to tell you, this engine, it's smooth, up top, down low. It almost feels like a multi-cylinder. I know that's a big thing, but I'm a huge fan of multi-cylinders. I've ridden all kinds of multi-cylinders, and I don't really feel like this is missing anything over a multi-cylinder bike. If you can think of anything that might be in this class that offers this kind of package, please leave a note in the comments. Again, a lot of this depends on the price point, but there's going to be a lot of riders out there who simply could get on one of these. It's narrow, it's seat height adjustable, so a lot of different heights of riders can ride it. Power delivery is awesome. It's going to be more capable on the highway. Zero doubt about that. There's just a lot to love about this iteration of the Himalayan, and I think they'll be able to keep this going for a long time. The bike is just one gigantic change. It's not the same bike, it has the same name, and they've kept some of the same philosophy. Oh, we got a couple drops here. Got a big sheet of ice. See, this is when it's nice to slow it down. I wish this was closer to home. Look at that water. That's what water should look like. Oh, anyway. Gotta focus on this road, but I want to sign off here.
Some of the many upgrades make the new Himalayan worth looking at, whether you're a new rider, old rider, experienced rider, previous Himalayan owner, whatever it is. If you're looking for a cool bike that will help you get on your way, explore the world, this is definitely one worth checking out. Well, that's it for the quick walk-around overview. It's been Carl from ADV Moto. Thank you guys for coming along. And I wish you could all be out here with me.